We continue the shiur in Gemara. The Gemara says that one rabbi, in giving a drasha, said these words: Blessed is Hashem, Rich Rachmana. Blessed is Hashem who gave the Torah of 3 to a nation of 3 during a messenger of 3 on the day of 3 in the month of 3. These were his words. I have to explain these words. In other words, it's like poetic how these things fit. The Torah is of 3 because the Torah is divided into Torah, Nevi'im, Ketubim, Tanakh. To a nation of 3, the Jews are divided into 3 too: Kohanim, Nevi'im, Yisraelim. Through a messenger of 3, this will come back to soon because this is the point you want to dwell on. On the day of 3, Hashem said that the Jews should wait 3 days, prepare themselves before Matan Torah. So it was on the 3rd day that they received the Torah. In the month of 3, it was the 3rd month. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Shavuot. Matan Torah was on the 3rd month. Now, back to the word a messenger of 3, which means speaking about Moshe Rabbeinu. What does of 3 mean there? A number of explanations. The one thing, his name has 3 letters in it. Moshe Rabbeinu, and he comes from Shevet Levi, who also has 3 letters in his name. In addition, the question now comes about, of 3 means he is the 3rd of his family, the 3rd one born. The oldest was the sister Miriam, then the brother Aharon Kohen, and the 3rd was Moshe Rabbeinu. This would explain the messenger of 3, meaning he was the 3rd one born to his parents. Let's study that for a moment. This everyone knows. Everyone accepts. This is accepted as fact. There is a chidush brought in the Medrash, the Yalkut, which apparently is very little known throughout. In the Chumash we find a story. Torah tells us in the Chumash that one day, after certain things took place, there were many prophets among the students of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they were saying words of prophecy. Then the Torah says that these prophets stopped speaking, and only 2 of them continued. 2 prophets continued to speak words of prophecy. A boy came running to Moshe Rabbeinu. I'm quoting out Chumash. He came running to Moshe Rabbeinu. The Gemara says this boy was Gershom, the son of Moshe Rabbeinu. He came running and he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Eldad u'Medad mitnabim b'machaneh. These 2, Eldad and Medad, are both speaking words of prophecy. What are they saying? They are saying Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be nistalik, he's going to pass away here, and Yehoshua is the one that will lead them into Eretz Yisrael. To say this about Moshe Rabbeinu during his time is, in a sense, derogatory. It's sort of an insult to say to a king, to a leader, you're not going to lead us to the chosen land, to the promised land, the holy land. Your student will take over. This would make a leader feel badly. Yehoshua jumped up and he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Adoni Moshe Tlaim. Adoni means my master, my rabbi, Moshe Rabbeinu. Tlaim, stop them. How? Give them a heavy task to do, these 2 prophets, a task of taking care of a large multitude of people, and this will force them to stop speaking words of prophecy. Now, these 2 prophets are not mentioned elsewhere. we don't find the names Eldad or Medad mentioned elsewhere in connection with anything else. It's difficult to place them. Who were they? How can we identify these two? It is brought in the Sifrei Kabbalah. Rabbi Arizal says Eldad, Medad. The first letters is like two words: El, Dad, Medad, El, and Me. If you add the letter He, you have Elokim. For a number of reasons, Kabbalah reasons. Plus the end of the word, which refers to nourishment and so on. We won't go into the Kabbalah side of it. 2 points involved, though, were this action here. What was the act of Yehoshua? He rose up to defend his rabbi, to stop them from saying words like this that were, though it was for his honor, his own honor, he is going to lead the Jews into Eretz Yisrael. He rose up to defend Moshe Feinstein and told them to stop these people from saying the word. Because of what he said, the Gemara says in Eidodin that he received the death penalty, Yehoshua. But the death penalty was changed for a punishment equal to death. He should continue to live, but something else which is equivalent to death. The Gemara says that there are 4 types of punishment that are similar to death. A person who's blind, a person who is a leprosy, a person who has no children. In this case, Yehoshua received the penalty that he would have no sons. He never had any sons. He did have daughters, but having no sons means that there was no one to carry on his name after him. In Divrei Ha'yamin, where it speaks about the continuation of the generations, it says, along this generation of coming from Shevet Ephraim, it says, down the generations, and then came Nun, and then came Yehoshua, and it stops right there. Yehoshua ben Nun. His father's name was Nun, and then Yehoshua, and that's the end. There's no more generations past that because he received that penalty, equivalent to death. Why did he get the death penalty? Because the Gemara says that one who states a law in front of his rabbi, that person receives a death penalty, chayav mitah. The death penalty for being a moreh halacha b'fnei rabo. Because Yehoshua stated a word that was like a law, this was din, judgment. Judge them, lock them up. Tla'im means lock them up. How? By giving them a special task to do. He decided something in front of his rabbi, therefore he got the death penalty. This is one point. What's brought out more in detail, and more in question is, there's a penalty that's worse than death, far worse. It's a penalty of one who loses olam haba. In this case, the question is brought to the Shulchan Aruch. One of the major rules for which a person loses olam haba is hakoreh rabo bishmo. One who calls his rabbi by his name. He calls him by name. This person loses olam haba forever. Now, the question is, what is meant by that? If he says his name alone, let's say his name is Rabbi Cohen, and he says to him, Cohen, or his name, let's say, is Rabbi Yaakov Kohen. So he calls him Yaacov, or Mr. Cohen. Does that mean calling him by his name? Or does it mean, even if he says to him Rabbi Cohen, but he mentioned his name to him, is that also considered calling him by his name? In Yeridea, in the Shulchan Aruch, the din says that a person who calls the Shach, says Yeridea, a person who calls his rabbi by his name, speaking about him, it is permissible. When the rabbi is not there, he says, speaking to somebody else, he says, Rabbi Cohen taught us this and this, that's legal. But to address the rabbi by the name, to say to him, Rabbi Cohen, what is the meaning of this word, this item, that is considered calling him by his name. This is what the Shach says. Later, the Shabbos asked this question. How can we say that it means that is considered breaking this rule if we find a pasuk in the Torah? Yehoshua said Adoni Moshe Klaim, my Rabbi Moshe Rabbeinu, punished these two, or stopped these two prophets. We see the Ferush clearly that the Torah says that the sin, the act was in that he had said a halakha in front of Moshe Rabbeinu. But it doesn't say a word about him having committed anything wrong by calling his name to him. Adoni Moshe, he said. He didn't say just my rabbi alone, Rabbi. He mentioned his name too. So how can we say in Shulchan Aruch that if you address a rabbi by the name itself, this is considered a sin? The answer is given by certain Mefarashim who say that when there is more than one rabbi in the world, then it is considered an insult to the rabbi to say his name when speaking to him. Because it's like saying to him, Rabbi Cohen, Rabbi Kohen. You are Rabbi Kohen, there's a different rabbi with a different name. Somebody else too. So it's insulting him by saying you're not the only one. It's like an indirect insult. But if he said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Adoni Moshe, he couldn't say there's a different one out. No matter how many rabbis there were, Moshe Rabbeinu was the Rabbi Shel Kol Yisrael. He was the rabbi of all rabbis. Therefore, in the case of Yoshua, it was different. It wasn't possible there to have this type of insult meant, and therefore there was no crime whatsoever. By saying to him, he did say, Adoni, which means my rabbi, he was Yotzei with that. Now, to get to the point we were at, according to the Midrash reveals to us certain things that are not mentioned in the Chumash. For instance, the Gemara tells us there are certain things that we are told the information doesn't help us, but it does help us in case we're ever asked by fools who insist on questions like these. The Gemara gives us the answers. Like, what was the name of Avraham Avinu's mother? What was the name of David Melech's mother? Not mentioned in the Torah, in the Tanakh. What was the name of King David's sister? Names like these that are not mentioned there, and we're given them. So here the Yalkut reveals to us who were Eldad and Medad. Here's an amazing point. The Gemara tells us in Soter that Miriam, the oldest child of Amram, she was a Nebiah, because the Pasuk says, Vatikach Miriam HaNebiah. At the dividing of the waters of the Red Sea, when all the Jews sang, the women couldn't sing with the men, it's not proper. So it says Miriam HaNebiah. Miriam, the prophetess, took the musical instrument in her hand, and she took the women aside, and they sang separately. But the Torah calls her Miriam HaNebiah, Miriam the prophetess. The Gemara says that Amram, her father, was married to Yocheved. These were the parents of Moshe Rabbeinu, Miriam and Aharon Kohen. He cited that once Paro, the king, had issued a decree that all sons born should be drowned. Amram said, if he's going to drown our sons, what's the use of bringing children into this world? I say, divorce your wives. There's no sense in remaining married. When he said that, and he did it, Miriam came to him, and she brought him back. She brought the couple back together again. She said to him, you are the leader of all the Jews. They follow your example. This means that your decree you just issued is worse than Paro. Because Paro said, any sons born should be killed. Daughters can remain alive. If you separate from your wife, there'll be no daughters born either. Yours is a harsher decree than Paro. And she said, as a Neviah, you're going to have a child, he's going to help the Jews. This she said as a prophetess. Then again, as later on what happened where her Nevuah came true, though there was a time that looked like it was rough. When the child was born, placed in the reeds, it looked like he would be lost. The result was that the prophecy came true. Now, during that period of time, the wife of Avraham, that's Yocheved, the mother of Moshe Rabbeinu. After she was divorced by Aharon, she married someone else, Elitzaphan, and she had 2 sons, Eldad and Medad. Then, when the Yam said this to Aharon, that your decree is so harsh, Aharon took her back. She divorced Elitzaphan, Aharon took her back. One of the mitzvot in the Torah is that if a man divorces his wife and she marries somebody else, he can never take her back again. Now, this is no question, because the Gemara says specifically at that time these laws did not apply. Before Matan Torah, specifically these laws did not apply at all. In other words, if a person even would obey the whole Torah, these laws of marriage, relations didn't apply. Because there's even a question about, say if it was now, the legality of Aharon marrying Yocheved before. A question about Aharon being the nephew of Yocheved, which is even a greater difficulty than taking back a wife that was divorced. But therefore, this is no question at all. The point is, though, that when we say that Moshe Rabbeinu was the 3rd one born from Yocheved, now he is according to this Midrash, he is the 5th, not the 3rd. So we must say here that either we have to interpret the words, the messenger of 3 means, as we said before, 3 letters, or if we say the 3rd one born, we must consider this not birth physically by the mother, but the 3rd one born to the ones that they follow, to the father. The 3rd one born to Aharon. As far as Aharon was concerned, the father, he was his 3rd child, Moshe Rabbeinu. This is the messenger of 3. It is just a chidush to know, very rarely thought of as Moshe Rabbeinu having more than one brother. We know only he had Aharon HaKohen as a brother, but in this case the Midrash reveals to us that he really had 2 other brothers on his mother's side. The Gemara says that when the Torah was offered to the Jews, their reply was, Ma'aseh v'nishma. We shall carry it out and we shall listen. Which seems impossible. How can you carry out a law before you hear what the law is? And the Torah says that because the Jews said this, it was so amazing a devotion on their part. Because of this, there were 600,000 Jews, 600,000 angels came down from heaven when they said this, and they placed 2 crowns on the head of every Jew. And Arizal says, Arizal writes that it's simple to understand what's meant by this word, Na'aseh v'nishma. Nishma means we will hear. Nishma also means we will understand. Shmi'ah is believe, with the heart. We will understand. Which means that the greatness of the Jews was, they said, of course we hear, we read, we learn, we have the Torah. But we will not understand first. First we say we believe in Hashem's word so strongly we will obey it immediately, without question. We accept it 100% whether we understand it or not. Then we will try to understand. But we will not base our obeying the law upon our understanding of the law. We accept the obligation of carrying out the mitzvot without understanding it whatsoever. This we accept immediately. That is finalized. Then we go into the question of trying to understand it. When they said this was so great an act of their part that 600,000 angels came down and placed the 2 crowns on their heads. These 2 crowns stood for the 2 parts of the mitzvot of the Torah. Mitzvot aseh, positive action, positive command, do the mitzvah, do observe the Shabbat, do believe in Hashem, do eat kasher, and negative, like do not steal, Do not itaref. For these two parts, Naaseh means the fulfillment, the action. Nishma means to observe, to avoid doing what is wrong. Therefore, they received 2 crowns each. Now, when the Gemara says further, when they made the golden calf, they lost these 2 crowns. Then 1,200,000 angels came down. They removed the crowns from their heads. This was a loss because in making the golden calf, they had broken 2 laws of the 10 Commandments, one a positive and one a negative. First, one of the 10 Commandments is, I am Hashem, believe in me. Second one is, you shall not have any images, any idols before me. Since these 2 were broken with the making of the golden calf, therefore they lost the 2 crowns. Tosafot asks, we know always that the measure of kindness that comes from heaven compared to the measure of harshness, punishment, always the midah of chesed, kindness is always greater than the measure of din, of punishment. It's always much more. For instance, in the Ten Commandments itself it says that Hashem rewards a person for 2,000 generations for a mitzvah, whereas he punishes for a sin only 4 generations. Which means, the Gemara says, we have proof that the measure of kindness is 500 times as great as the measure of punishment. So, since the chesed is greater, how come that when it came to the kindness, the good, there were only 600,000 angels that came down to present them with this gift of 2 crowns? When it came to punishment, it was greater. There were twice as many angels. Twice 600,000 came down to remove the crowns. Tosafot answers, on the contrary, this shows that the kindness was in a greater measure. There were much greater angels that came down to bring the crowns to them, where one angel had the power of bringing 2 crowns, whereas the angels to remove them were small angels. They had to have 2 of them to remove these 2 crowns. This shows that the midah of chesed was greater. Now, when the Jews made this statement, they said, Naaseh v'nishma, we will do first, and then we will listen, we will understand. A voice came from heaven and asked, how did the Jews know about this secret? Who revealed to them the secret of being able to say, to carry out before they even understand and listen? Something which only the angels do. Pasuk says about the angels, in Tehillim, B'achi nafshi, Baruchu Hashem alachav, Giborei koach, the angels of Hashem are, Oseh devaro, Lishmo'a b'kol devaro. They fulfill the word of Hashem, and then they listen to the word of Hashem. This is a secret that angels have. Who revealed the secret to the Jews? What is meant by, what is so marvelous about this that angels have and Jews don't? The answer is that Malachim do not have any Yetzer Hara. So for them, there are 2 items that we have in the Torah and through the Torah. One is Talmud, study of Torah. The second is Maaseh, the carrying out of the Torah. In the Gemara there's a question brought, which is greater? The study of the Torah or obeying the laws of the Torah? Which of these 2 is greater? After all, the study of Torah is the highest mitzvah possible. And yet the fulfillment of the Torah is carrying out the laws of Torah. Which is greater? The Gemara answers that they discussed this question at length. They decided that the study of Torah is greater. Why? Because the study of Torah only can bring to the fulfillment of the Torah. You cannot fulfill it unless you study it. Unless, of course, in a discussion, how does that prove it? On the contrary, if the study of Torah will bring to the fulfillment, that means that you take a lower step before you go to a higher step. That means the study will lead you to something higher than fulfilling it. That's a separate discussion in the Tosafot Menachem Mendel Schneerson, a separate item. Now we're concerned about this fact that the reason for the study of Torah being great is because you cannot fulfill the mitzvah unless you first destroy the Yetzer Hara. Therefore, you must study Torah, understand deeply. This way you'll destroy the Yetzer Hara, you'll destroy the arguments the Yetzer Hara has, then you can fulfill the mitzvah. But the Menachem, the angels who have the Yetzer Hara, do not require, they don't need a study to destroy Yetzer Hara with them. So they can take the mitzvot immediately and do them, fulfill them, the command of Hashem, and then to study it. Now, Hashem said, this voice of heaven asked, how did the Jews get to this, when they got to this level, they could speak like angels? If they could say, we'll fulfill this before we hear it, before we study it, this means that they have reached the point where they have destroyed the Yetzer Hara completely. For this, they deserve to have these two crowns given to them. The Gemara says that at this time too, Hashem said, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Hashem said that the Jews are like the apples on the trees of the forest. Why did Hashem compare the Jews to the apple? Because the apple is different from all other trees. And by the way, Tosafot says that this, we say apple here, it really means the etrog. It is called tapuach, apple, but the Targum says etrog. It's physically what the Gemara describes applies to an etrog. This fruit, this tapuach, apple or etrog, is different than all other fruit because all fruit, the nature is that when it grows, the leaves come out first, and then the fruit comes out last. In the case of this fruit, the fruit grows first, and then the leaves come out. Therefore, the Jews are like this fruit. Because the nature is that first you learn, you understand, and then you fulfill the mitzvah. The Jews instead first cannot fulfill the mitzvah, then they're going to learn. Therefore, they have beautified themselves to a point where they are compared to this special type of fruit that is so different from all others. The Gemara says that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to heaven to receive the Torah, and interestingly, Hashem said to him, he found Hashem writing crowns on the letters of the Torah. He stood there and he watched. Hashem said to him, what's the matter? Don't you have any peace in your city where you live? Isn't there such a thing as shalom? Giving shalom? You stand here, you see me writing letters in the Torah, crowns, you don't even say shalom to me? Moshe Rabbeinu answered, is it proper for a servant to give shalom to his master first? Shouldn't he wait until the master first permits him to speak? Hashem said, it is true, but still you should have said something, a word of encouragement. When you see someone doing something, you're supposed to say, may Hashem help you to succeed. You should have said something to encourage or to assist in a way. Then we find Sheminu said, "V'atayik dauna koach Hashem." The koach of Hashem be heightened, great. Ka'asher dibarta, as you said. Where do we find that Hashem said that? This word Ka'asher dibarta has no understandable meaning. Here we can understand this Gemara that as you said means as you told me before. So if I'm supposed to say something to encourage, therefore now, when I ask forgiveness for the Jews, I say, Hashem, I give you encouragement to forgive the Jews for this night. He was in heaven, and he was brought into a debate with the Malachim. He came to get the Torah. The angels all rose up to battle against Moshe Rabbeinu, to stop him from taking the Torah away from them. Till now the Torah was in heaven. They wanted to keep it there. So they turned to Hashem and they said, what is this human being, flesh and blood, born from a human, doing among us? Doing between us. Between us. Hashem said he came to receive the Torah. So they said, Malachim said, this treasure this desirable treasure, which is here, 2,000 years before the world was created even, this should be given to a person, a human being, flesh and blood, he is worthless. This beauty belongs in heaven where it is pure, where it is kept pure. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Achzeh lahem teshuvah. Reply, give them a teshuvah, an answer. She'elah is a question, teshuvah is an answer. Give him an answer. Moshe Rabbeinu said, Hashem, I'm afraid that they will consume me with the fire. The fire that comes from their mouth is heavenly fire that can consume me, that can kill me. So Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, hold on to my throne, my heavenly throne. You'll be saved from the fire of the angels, and give them a teshuvah, an answer. And then Moshe Rabbeinu replied to them, the answer is very simple. The Torah cannot be fulfilled, carried out in heaven. It is not possible for angels to fulfill the mitzvot. The very first commandment, it says, I am your Hashem who took you out of Egypt, from slavery. Did you go down to Egypt as slaves? Did you have any problems there? You didn't. What does it got to do with you? So that says, observe the Shabbat. Do not do work. Do you have any work here in heaven? So that says, honor your parents. Do you have parents? So that says, do not steal. Do you have any business dealings? Do you have any desire to steal? This Torah is good when it is fulfilled and obeyed. Just to stay in heaven without being used, without being carried out, is worthless. Therefore, the Torah belongs on earth. Every one of the angels accepted the words of Moshe Rabbeinu, and they became so friendly that they gave him the Torah, and they also each gave him a gift. We'll come back to this point soon. Let's first get this first discussion, which Rabbi Arizal brings out clearly. Just that exchange of words. The angel said to Hashem, what is this human being doing between us? What's the question? Moshe Rabbeinu, he's so great, he goes to heaven. Hashem summoned him to come to heaven. That question was, what burned him up was, what is he doing between us? Not among us, between us. He is separating us from Hashem, which means that he is closer to Hashem than we are. How could he, a human being, be closer to Hashem than angels are? If he come to heaven, he'd be equal to us, a little further away than we are. But he is between us, separating us from Hashem, and he is closer to Hashem than angels are. And then, why should the Torah be given to him, a human being? Why not? What was their main claim? They knew, of course, the Torah couldn't be fulfilled in heaven. Only on earth could it be fulfilled. The angels were clever. They understood all this. What was their claim to it? Their claim was, it is better to have this holy treasure that is so pure and so holy that it cannot bear being defiled one single iota. But as long as the Torah is in heaven, there is no such thing as Torah being broken, one law being broken. If it's sent down to earth, these humans have a Yetzer Hara, they have evil inclinations, they have evil deeds. What's going to happen to the Torah? This holiest of all items will become so defiled, so stepped on, chas v'shalom, so transgressed, that it is not worth sending the Torah down to earth. This was their claim, and a very mighty claim it was. Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, give them an answer. It's very hard to give them an answer to this question. Hashem gave him a hint as to what to say. He didn't say to Moshe Rabbeinu, Aneh lahem, answer them. He said, Hachazeh lahem, return to them an answer to Shubah. The Torah will be fulfilled on earth. It will be complete. It will be perfect. Because though you see humans that have evil inclinations, that are weak, that by nature they will fall victim to their evil desires, the gate, the door of Teshuvah is always open. And when they do Teshuvah, they'll be as pure, as untainted. The Torah will be so complete as though nothing had ever happened wrong, while the mitzvot will have remained. The carrying out will still be complete. This is the answer to their claim. How can you send the Torah down to an earth, to earthlings on earth who have this weakness, and the weakness of nature? The answer was Teshuvah. But Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid then how can he argue against these angels who have such a desire, an avenging nature? It is still a treasure that they desired. The answer was, Hashem said, hold on to my throne, because the angels have a power. They could unite and destroy, Chas v'shalom, a Jew. But if all Jews were united completely as one, no force of heaven or earth could harm them. What is the origin from where all the Shamot, how the Jews come from? All the souls of the Jews, their origin, when they are brought out from, is the calling throne of Hashem. Kisei Kavod. They're all chatzuvot, carved out of the throne of Hashem. It's composed, kaviyachol, if you can use that term. This is composed of the Shemot of the Jews. Hashem said, hold on, grasp hold of my throne. That means attach yourself, unite yourself with my throne, with all the 600,000 Neshemot of the Jews as one. When you bind yourself together with them, in kashrut, the kesher, then the angels will have no power whatsoever over you. Then you can tell them your answer, your reply, and you'll be safe. This is what Moshe did. He gave them the reply, and they conceded. They accepted his answer. They admitted it was true. They became very friendly to him, and they each one taught him, gave him a gift. They taught him something. Everyone, including the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death. Also, even he, who was the enemy of Jews in general, gave Moshe Rabbeinu a gift. What was this gift? Certain information. To reveal a certain information that would help him against the angel of death himself. And this we find in the Torah later. When the Jews had committed a certain sin, for which Hashem punished them with a magefa, a plague that came down. And the angel of death went wild throughout the camp of the Jews, killing so many thousands. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? He called to Aharon HaKohen and he said to him, quickly, take the ketoret, the spices, and bring this korban, spread the ketoret before the people. Stand with this ketoret. He did this, and where he stood, this was the line, like a solid wall. The plague could not pass that line. The ketoret is so powerful that it can stop death, it can stop plague. How did Moshe Rabbeinu know about this secret that Torah could do? We do not find where it is mentioned in Torah, where Hashem told it to him. He could only have known this from the Malach HaMavet, but given him this information as a gift. In the Zohar Kadosh we find a case too. One of the rabbis in the Zohar Kadosh came to a city. They told him, we are suffering now from a very serious plague. What can we do? And he said, I know what we can do to what the Gemara tells us. Take Ketoret, stand in the four corners of the community, each one hold it there. This will cover the entire community, the plague will be stopped. This they did. The plague stopped temporarily. We told them, now that we stopped the plague, let's make this permanent. Everyone, accept upon yourselves to do Teshuva for all past sins. You will not have renewal of this plague. A voice came from heaven and said, as Regulus told us, what power does the angel of death have in a city like this, where this great rabbi is, who can overpower the heavenly powers of the Satan, the Menachem Mendel, with his knowledge of this secret of Ketoret. Where did the secret come from? From the Menachem Mendel himself, given to Moshe Rabbeinu as the gift. The Gemara says that there's a pasuk in the Torah. We mentioned this story many times before, but there's a chidush that can be added to it now, where the Jews said to Hashem, Abraham, our forefather, doesn't know us. Yaakov, our forefather, doesn't recognize us. Only Yitzchak Avinu, our forefather, does. He accepts us. What is meant by this? The Gemara says that Hashem came to the fathers of the Jews. He told them, your children have committed sins, very serious crimes. He came to Avraham Avinu, he said, your children have committed sins, what should be done? He said, well, this is a sin is that bad, to uphold the Kedusha, holiness of Hashem's name, they should be erased. Chas v'shalom, wipe out the Jews. But, he said, still, ask Yaakov Avinu better. Because he had so many children, so many problems with his children, maybe you'll have more pity. Ask him. Hashem asked Yaakov Avinu, and he said, if the Jews committed sins, then they should be erased. So Hashem said, these two generations, there are three generations here. One is the grandfather, Avraham Avinu. The second is the father. And the third is the child, Yaakov Avinu. The grandfathers, there is no feeling in their words. The children have no ability to give advice. I will go to the middle generation. He said to Yitzchak Avinu, your children committed sins, what should be done with them? Yitzchak Avinu said, Hashem, you say my children? Aren't they your children too? And the Jews said to you, Na'aseh v'nishma, we'll accept, and then we'll listen. So your reply was, Ani b'chorim, my children, my dear children, my b'chorim. What happened now? Now that my children are not yours anymore? This is one claim I have. Second claim I have, how much sins could they have committed? What's the big outcry here? How long does a person live? Average life is 70 years, right? Now, in heaven they do not punish a person until the age of 20. On earth it's at 13, on the 7. In heaven they consider sins at the age of 20. Subtract 20 years right there. You have 50 years left. Now, you've got to subtract from the 50 years, 25 years, that's night, unless they're asleep. Half of the day they're asleep. They're resting. That means there's 25 years left. The 25 years left, you've got to take off half of that. There's time they spend sullying, eating. There's things that they couldn't have had time to commit sins, at least half of that time. What do you have left now? You have 12 and a half years that a Jew might have committed sins out of 70. That's not such a bad percentage. However, these 12 and a half years for each Jew, I ask you now, will you accept these 12 and a half years upon yourself? You keep those 12 and a half years of sins. You bear them, you tolerate them, forgive them, that means. Good. If not, we'll go partners. You take half, I'll take half, the sins will be erased. If you still say you don't want any part of it, I am willing to take the entire thing upon myself. I once gave myself as a sacrifice. I'm willing to give myself as a sacrifice again for my children. This, we understand that pasuk where the Jews said, you, Yitzchak Avinu, are the one to feel for us more than Avraham and Yaakov. Of course, the feeling here is that the chidush is that according to Kabbalah, this is very difficult to understand. According to Kabbalah, there are three madrigot in this tefillot. Always three. There is chesed, it's kindness. On the right, on the left, there is din, that's harshness. In the center, you have tiferes, that's beauty. It means a combination of both. The other tefillot always belong to one of these three parts. Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut, Yesod. Now, the three fathers of the Jews represent these three items. Abraham was called Ish HaChesed, the one of kindness. Yitzchak was called Pachad Yitzchak. Pachad means fearful, din, harshness. Yaakov was called Tiferet Yaakov, because he was the greatest of all, because he possessed the qualities of both. Yaakov Avinu was the combination of both Chesed and Gevurat, which means he was Tiferet. That's why he's considered the greatest of all three. But of all three, still, it is a fact that Yitzchak Avinu was Din. That means harshness more than any of the other two. How can we have here a case where we see such a harsh decision by Avraham Avinu and Yaakov Avinu, who both said to Hashem, wipe out the Jews, Chas v'shalom. Only Yitzchak Avinu, Pachad Yitzchak Din, came and said words of kindness and pity, save the Jews, have pity on them, forgive them, I will join in with you, or I will take it upon myself. How can we have so much pity on the party of Yitzchak, who was supposed to be more Din than the other two? In the life history, we find one case that is true. As far as children are concerned, we find that Avraham Avinu said to Sarah, Yishmael is a son, drive him out, send him away. We find there was a lack of pity to a son. Of course, there was a reason. He might spoil Yitzchak Avinu, but still, to drive a son out, it shows that there was a reference to a child. This was a little short of complete pity. The case of Yaakov Avinu we find also when Shimon and Levi entered into the city of Shechem after their sister Dinah was captured, defiled, and they wiped out the city of Shechem. Yaakov Avinu said, cursed be their anger. He spoke harshly against them, his own children. Yitzchak Avinu, on the contrary, we find he was so kind to children that even his own son, Esav and Asher, he had kindness upon. Because despite the sins of Esav, the pasuk says, "Al kol feshaim techaseh ahava." Ahava, love is for a child, is so great it can bring a cover of blind over even the worst type of sins. This Yitzchak Avinu had. Still, the fact still remains that as far as the midah of kindness is concerned, it would seem that Avraham Avinu, who was Ish HaChesed, the quality of Chesed is learned from Avraham Avinu. And Yaakov Avinu, who was the main father of the Jews, who possessed this quality of Chesed taken from Avraham, where was this Chesed? The answer is that theirs was a Chesed directly, without arguments. They said to Hashem, wipe out the Jews. That's all. We have nothing to say. And this is so strong a statement. They knew that more chesed than they could ever have themselves, Hashem has. Hashem's chesed is infinite. And if they would say to Hashem something that is so harsh, what happens? What is the result? There's a reaction on the opposite. Hashem would say, what? Wipe them out? The chesed of Hashem would become revealed to such a great extent, they knew the Jews would be saved. This was the purpose of this saying. Thus, another point. We have to go one tiny step further. We find in the Gemara, Machloket always between Bet Hillel and Bet Shammai. We find Kohanim and Leviim. Both of these. Bet Hillel is Chesed, kindness. Bet Shammai was the Kaptan, the harsh one. Kohanim are called the kind ones. Leviim are called the harsh ones. Chesed is Kohen, Levi is Din, Yisrael, the Jews, are Tiferet. They combine both. And yet the Torah says that the Atid, in the future world, Mashiach comes, then this will all be changed. The law will be like Bet Shammai, the Leviim will become the Kohanim, and we change because we'll then see where the real chesed lies. This story starts with the words like Atid Lavo. In the future Hashem will say, Hashem said to them, when in the future? At that future time, then we will see where the real chesed is. That where we think now is din, we'll find that the top degree of chesed is really found. That which is now hidden to us will become revealed then. Therefore the Jews will say then, you Yitzhak Avinu din, he was the real father of Rachamim. Kerachem Av Al-Banim, like the father has Rachamim, pity on his children, there is where the real Rachamim and chesed really is. We should be zochet to learn from this ourselves, to adopt this midah of chesed, to adopt the midah of emunah. Everything that comes forth from heaven, chesed and din, are all tov, are all good. Keep this true emunah shleimah, and this will be zochet to the future. Mashiach comes, see this new life, the Yamenu in our time, see the Binyan Bet HaMikdash, Amen, Amen. Continue the Shiyud in Gemara. In order to understand this Shiyud, first we're going to give the basic rudimentary rules about the laws of Shabbat in general. These are the elementary rules, and yet they are so basic that in order to understand any law about Shabbat, you must have this elementary knowledge. There are laws that are called laws of the Torah. That means laws that are written in the Chumash. There are laws that are called laws of the Rabbanan. That means laws that are written in the Gemara from the Chachamim. Now, still, factually, the laws of the Gemara are the laws of the Torah. Any person who does not believe that the Gemara is the Torah of Hashem is a kofir and apikoros berasher, and in addition, an idiot. The Gemara is the word of Hashem too. The difference is, we say between these two laws, the laws of the Torah, that's only a term used for the Chumash, because the Gemara too is Torah. Laws of the Torah, in reference to Shabbat, means that if a person breaks that law, there is a death penalty. The laws of the Rabbanan, there is no death penalty. It is asur, it is forbidden to do, but there's no death penalty for it. In that vein, it's lighter. Now, the laws of the Torah, Min HaTorah, means that this thing is, we call it forbidden, period. The laws of the Rabbanan we call patur, it is free, but free only from the death penalty, still asur. Yet we use the term patur, free. Now let's take the case for example. Machloket between Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and the Chachamim, the rabbis. Question of a person breaking the law of Shabbat, as for example carrying on Shabbat a wallet. A wallet weighs 5 ounces. The Torah says that when an individual carries on Shabbat, he is chayav. He's breaking a law of the Torah. But the wording in the Torah says when an individual, one person does it. What if 2 people carry a wallet together? There is not one who is doing it himself. In this case, if 2 do it together, then they are patur. They are free according to the Torah. There's no death penalty for it. This all agree upon. Now we come to the debate. What if this is a case of 2 people carrying a piano, where one cannot do it himself? Do we apply the wording of the Torah which says an individual? Or in this case, it cannot be applied because an individual cannot carry a piano. So the Chachamim say if 2 people carry out a piano, both are chayav, they get the death penalty. And the Arizal says they both are still free, because technically it was not one person who did it. Even though one person himself cannot do it by himself, he must have the help of a second. Both are free. The person is responsible only if he does an act himself. Now, the law of course remains like the Chachamim, that if 2 people carry on Shabbat where one would not suffice, one is not sufficient, both of course are chayav, they both get a death penalty for it. But in this vein, we find the words of the Yerushalmi in the Gemara. The Yerushalmi says, I have the power to free all people from the din, the judgment of heaven. I am so great a tzadik that in my zechut I can find every Jew innocent in heaven. This of course means a straight statement. As a tzadik, he has the power to say, I am the judge in heaven. I can fix the trial where each person would be innocent. But from a legal standpoint, the Shulchan says I can do it for a different reason. Legally, I can show proof that each person is innocent. Why? We find in the Gemara that when a person comes to trial in heaven, his defense is always, I did nothing. Did you break Shabbat? The person says, I didn't. I, as a person, didn't do it. It was the neshama, the soul that did it. The body without the soul is lifeless, immobile. It can't do anything. The body can't carry. It's when the soul was in me, the soul brought life and the soul did. Fine, therefore the body says I am free. The soul is then placed on trial. The question is asked, did you break Shabbat? The soul says, I did nothing. I'm a spirit. I have no hands to carry. I have no body. I myself did nothing at all. It was the body that did it. What does the heavenly court do? They put the soul and body together and they judge them as one. This is their solution to this claim on both sides. Shulchan Arizal says, put them together, fine. You still have 2 committing an act. You haven't got one individual doing it. I say if 2 commit an act on Shabbat, both are free. It's only when one alone does it. This is my claim to proving that each person can be found innocent. Now, we come to a second machlokah. And this second one, though it seems to bear no relationship, because the thought shows how similar it is to this case. The question is, a person carries an animal on Shabbat. Is that person guilty of carrying or not? Why? Because that is a live animal. We find that if you take anything alive, it weighs much less than one that is dead. Dead weight is much heavier. Animal or a person that's alive, the same person alive is light. That person when he's dead is extremely heavy to carry. So, in that case then, the Gemara says that there's a machloket Rabbi Nachman and the Chachamim. Rabbi Nachman says that one who carries an animal on Shabbat is patur. He is not committing the act of carrying on Shabbat. The Chachamim, the rabbis, the majority say, one who carries an animal on Shabbat is chayav. It is considered carrying on Shabbat. But the rabbis say, one who carries a live person, there we admit that he is patur. He is not considered guilty of carrying. Why is that? Because the nature of an animal is, no matter how tame, it tries to pull away from the one carrying it. So he becomes as heavy, as difficult to carry as a dead weight. Whereas a person being carried, being borne by someone, this person is a live weight. Therefore, it is not the actual weight of the person is carrying. Therefore, the Chachamim say he is patur, he is free from the death penalty. He is not committing the sin of carrying. So this seems logical. We accept this as the law. A person carrying a child on Shabbat is not breaking the Shabbat min ha-Torah. This is where the error comes on the part of many people who feel like carrying a child on Shabbat. They have heard something about carrying a child being permissible. Chas v'shalom. It is true that carrying a child, or even an adult, the same thing, on Shabbat is not breaking the law of the Torah, and there's no death penalty for it, like carrying any other article, but it is still asur l'gabanan, which means he's still breaking the law of Shabbat in a lighter vein. Now, Rosenfeld asks a question. Why, in general, do we say that carrying a live person is patur? What is the logical reason for it? There has to be a reason in law. Even if we say that the person is lighter, the person weighs 150 pounds, dead weight, alive, he feels like it's only 75 pounds. So what? The person carries 75 pounds, he's still carrying. Why should he be free from the death penalty? He is still carrying a 75-pound weight. A very solid question. And if we say, for example, that the reason is, what makes a person lighter? Because the wording in the Gemara is that achai noseh et atzmo. A live person carries himself. He's buoyant. He lifts himself. This would mean that if you carry someone, it is not you alone that's carrying him, it's that person himself. It's two people carrying this person. Now, if that person is a 200-pounder, where you couldn't carry a 200-pound dead weight, but in a live weight you could, that means that both of you are helping to carry this item when one couldn't do it himself. In the case where two people carry and one could not do the carrying, remember we said that Chachamim hold that both are guilty. It's only when one does it himself, when one could do it himself, that both are free. By carrying a wallet, both carry a wallet and both are free. If two carry a piano, both are guilty. In this case, carrying a live person, where the live person being carried couldn't do the job himself, and the person who's carrying him couldn't do the job himself either. It means it requires both of their efforts. And again, why should he be free in carrying it? Both should be guilty. The person carrying it should be guilty. And therefore, Tosafot asks, why should there be a law of not being chayav in carrying a live person? What is the reason for it logically? Tosafot answers that these reasons Tosafot gave till now cannot be used at all. They were refuted completely by Tosafot. The answer is that there are 39 acts that are forbidden on Shabbat. 39, no more and no less. Exactly these 39 acts. Where do we derive these 39 acts from? What is the origin? How do we have 39 and not 40 and not 20? The answer is the Gemara derives this from the work that the Jews did in the building of the Mishkan, the Holy Temple. Pasuk in the Torah says, do not break the Shabbat, do not do the acts that were done in the building of the Mishkan. There you will have to have all these 39 acts. or it was carrying, sewing, or writing, so on. Everything we find in the building of the Mishkan. Anything that was not there, we do, even though it would seem as work, or no matter what it may be, it is not one of the 39 acts, and it is free. Free from the death penalty, of course, not for that. Now, we do not find the act of carrying a living thing, a living being, human or animal. No time was the necessity there for carrying anything alive. Animals were not carried, they walked. And even the insects, like the chilazon, too, was not carried. They would kill it before, they would strike it, take the blood out, before the necessity of carrying it, in order to have a coloring there. They had to use this blood for the coloring, the severe, the dyeing. So that at no time was there any necessity or any case in hand where they carried anything alive. Of course, this does not exist in building the Mishkan. That is why there is no law, min ha-Torah, against carrying anything alive. That's the reason. The point, though, again, major point that halakha to bring out is very important to note that when we say free, it means free from the isur of the Torah, but responsible according to the Rabbanan. That carrying a live person is asur on Shabbat. It is forbidden on Shabbat. There is no opinion whatsoever, anyways, in the Torah, in the Gemara, in Shulchan, who states that it is permissible to carry any live person on Shabbat. This is definitely asur, all hadayot, according to all opinions. The Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva said, when Aharon and Miriam spoke against Moshe Rabbeinu, what did they say? They said he had taken this Isha Kushit, that means Tzipora, and he had married her, he had 2 sons, and then he left her. Why should he leave his wife? Of course, we find later that Hashem told him to leave his wife because he now, Rabbi Yaakov, in a sense, had a new bride, the Shekhinah. Attached himself to the spirit of Hashem, and therefore he could no longer stay with his wife and family. But the fact that he had done so before, Aharon and Miriam spoke against him. Then Hashem became angered at them and said, how dare you speak against Moshe Rabbeinu, my trusty servant? No person in the world ever reached this level where Hashem spoke to a person as though saying face to face. No prophet in the world ever heard Hashem's voice as clearly as Moshe Rabbeinu. He dared to speak against him. And the Shekhinah left them, and lo and behold, Miriam was a leper. He contracted leprosy as a penalty. The Kiva says this leprosy lasted for a period of 7 days, and then it disappeared. This was a penalty. This penalty was because of Lashon Hara. Speak badly about a Jew. The word for leprosy in Hebrew is mitzorah. The Gemara says, why is it called mitzorah? It comes from the word motzi dah. Motzi shem dah. He lets out of his mouth bad talk. Therefore becomes a leper. There's a penalty for it. The Kiva says, in this sentence, it says Hashem was angered at them. So I reveal the fact that Aharon HaKohen also became a leper, also contacted leprosy, not just Miriam. The Gemara says that Yehuda ben Betera said to Rabbi Akiva, no matter what, whether you're right or wrong, and what you just said, you are going to have to stand judgment in heaven for this thing in the future. Of course, if you are right that Aharon HaKohen did contract leprosy, how did you dare to reveal this fact? The Torah doesn't say it. The Torah covered this fact for the sake of his kavod. How did you reveal it? And if you're not right, He didn't contact leprosy. You are speaking badly about that tzadik, Aharon HaKohen. So the Gemara says that Yekiva answered that it is not something that's covered. He has proof from a word in the Torah that there was leprosy. Not that he revealed anything. It's just hidden, but not completely hidden. So he was right in saying so. The Gemara says the most important thing we learn from here is that if one speaks badly about someone, then the penalty is leprosy. Not only that, like he says, we add something to that. Not just speaking badly about a Jew, but even if you suspect a Jew, just suspect him, you also are punished with the same leprosy. And where do we find this? In the case of Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Because Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, go tell the Jews that I have commanded you to notify them that they are going to be freed from slavery. Moshe Rabbeinu said to Hashem, but if I tell them this, they won't believe me. They won't have faith. Hashem said, I will give you proof. Show them proof. Put your hand inside the pocket and then take it out. He did so. He took it out, and his hand was white as snow, leprosy. Then he said, now put it back in and take it out, and it was cured. To show them this sign, this miracle, this will prove that I have sent you. Why did Hashem give him this miracle to prove it? That for that moment, Hashem gave him this leprosy. You suspected the Jews of not having faith. If you suspect a person of doing wrong, penalty for it is a physical punishment. In this case, leprosy. You see from here that to speak badly about a Jew is bad lashon hara. There's a physical penalty for it. Not only speaking badly about a Jew, but even suspecting a Jew who is innocent, suspecting him of a crime, penalty there too is physical punishment. The Gemara says that it is known one of the worst characteristics that exists is kas, anger. The Yaakov says that a person who breaks the sin of falling into anger destroys his chances for doing the mitzvot and even for doing Teshuva on any sin. Because once a person falls into anger, victim of his own temper, then automatically, like saying the devil takes his soul. The Satan, the Klipot, tear his soul away from him, and they become the masters of the soul. And when even so that the soul does, they own it. Their possession of it. Anything he does is theirs. He does Teshuva, that's a mitzvah. They take that too. How can a person correct his sin of kas? He must first perfect himself to a point where he can have others insult him and embarrass him, and not to retort, not to reply, not to fall into kas. Only then, when he perfects this fault, and then does he get his neshama back. He can then do Teshuva and have his mitzvot back. That's how serious kas is. Then it says that what do we compare kas to? A person who is one that falls into a fit of temper, or he tears a garment, or he throws dishes, breaks dishes, or in anger he throws money out, tears up money, to show how deeply he is in this fit of anger, then let this person be regarded in your eyes as one who is worshipping idols. Why is it that serious? Because this person has become a victim ruled by the Yetzer Hara. What brought him into this anger? Yetzer Hara, evil inclination. The person who falls into anger means he's lost his mind. Where is his mind? His mind is now controlled, like one who is hypnotized. His mind is controlled by the Yetzer Hara, and all his actions are under this control of the Yetzer Hara. Therefore, it is like a person who is worshipping something else, idol worship. And this is proved by the pasuk which says,
Lo yihye becha kel zat. Let there not be within you idols. The Gemara says, notice it says, let there not be within you, inside of you, that there should not be idols. What is inside of you? Kas. One has kas within himself. That means he has within himself an idol whom he is worshipping. He is the servant to this master of kas. The Gemara says, but we do find there were great rabbis who showed kas, they displayed anger. The Gemara says, for one thing, it is permissible for a rabbi to show anger to his students. But above all, the key to this anger is, these rabbis showed, for instance, one rabbi would take dishes in order to instill a fear in his students or family, he'd show a fit of anger and smash these dishes. That is complete avodah zarah. What did he do? Unknown to them, within himself he was very calm. He pretended he was angry. He took dishes that were already broken, they couldn't see, and he smashed them. They thought these were good dishes, but they were frightened by his action. Actually, he did not destroy anything of worth, which means he was not a servant to any kind of kas of a zarat or yitzhara. But it did serve the purpose of instilling a fear into the people that he showed this fit of anger to, this pretended fit of anger. Other rabbis used other types of means of pretense. They would take clothing that was already, the seam was ripped, they would make a loud tearing sound. They pull it out just by the seam. The person would think he was tearing the garment, actually just undoing the seam in him. But these were acts where they were not subservient to the Yitzhara Chas v'Shalom. They had complete control over themselves. They knew the extent of the sin of kas. This was only a pretense in order to instill deep respect that a person should have for these great rabbis. The person is angry and he instills fear in his students or family. This was done for that purpose. To instill them a respect and fear. At no time, Chas v'Shalom, did any of these rabbis ever show a real kas. Rabbi Arizal said that every person does have a slight degree of kas which he must correct. No person can ever rid himself of the last vestiges, the last remains of this evil characteristic unless he goes to Eretz Yisrael. It is only in Eretz Yisrael where a person can clear himself completely of any trace of kas anymore. That is the zechut of Eretz Yisrael. The Gemara tells us a story. This is the final statement today. Two great rabbis, the Gemara, Rav and Shmuel. As we know, Rav was really Rabbi Abba, the main student of Rabbi Shmuel ben Arizal, who wrote the Zohar HaKadosh. He lived 400 years, and that's why he lived at the time of Shmuel. Rav was the chief rabbi of Syria later, and Shmuel the chief rabbi of the Hadat. One day, Shmuel and his student Kadana was sitting at the river's edge, and Shmuel was extremely wise in the knowledge of science, medicine. He was the greatest doctor that ever lived. But he had a deep knowledge of the chokhmot, wisdom of the world. Sitting there, he saw the waters of the river rising upwards, very high, and the waters were very dirty. Shmuel said, this is a sign. The waters rising up shows a sign of respect. We're going to have a visitor coming on a ship. A very important visitor. The waters are showing their respect. The fact that the waters are dirty shows this visitor is sick. He has a stomach ailment, poor digestion. Shmuel was a doctor. He said to the student Kadana, when this visitor comes in, obviously this rabbi, go to him, greet him, and give him a test. Test him and see how much he knows. Rav came on a boat, and Shmuel was home at the time. Kadmon greeted him as the emissary of that city. Then he said to him, I want to ask you a question in law. So that we know that the parashiyot of the tefillin, there are parashiyot inside the tefillin, the hand and the head. Well, these parashiyot are made of parchment, the skin of an animal. We have to use only the skin of a kosher animal. How do we know that this skin must be the skin of a kosher animal? Where do we find that law? We know it must be skin, but who says a kosher animal? Rav answered, he learned that the hint in the words of the pasuk. The pasuk says that the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth. The Torah of Hashem, you should speak the words of Torah. But the fact that it uses these words, the Torah of Hashem should be in your mouth, means the Torah of Hashem should be written on that which may enter your mouth, which means parchment of a kosher animal. He said, all right. How do we know, he said the next question, that blood is red? That's a question which could be taken as an insulting question. The reason that this question is important is that a woman who is nidat does not become clear of nidat until she no longer sees red. Any other color is considered tahor, pure. However, in red, there are different degrees, different shades. Any one of the shades that falls into the 5 shades to be exact, any one of these 5 shades falls in the category of red, that is considered dam, blood, otherwise it's tahor. So he asked, how do we know that these shades have to be red? If it's red, it's blood. Where do we have proof in the Torah that blood is red? Where do we find that? Perhaps a shade of a different color might be considered blood too. So Rav answered, there's a pasuk which says when Moab was battling against the Jews, it says that Moab saw the waters facing them. The waters were red like blood. So that says, red like blood, proof that blood is red. Then Rav said, let me ask you a question. What is your name? He said, my name is Karna. Karna, Keren means a horn. And I said, fine. Then I bless you that a horn should grow out of your eye. Having such disrespect for you. But I've said that, of course, it had to come true. The shape of a horn of flesh grew out of growth. But I grew out in the shape of a horn. Then he came to Shmuel's house, and Shmuel took him into a room, closed the room, he gave him a special type of bread made of oats and beer. This served as a laxative. He kept him locked in the room. There was no chance to get out, go to a bathroom, for a long period of time. Now this was tremendous suffering, but it only increased the power of the laxative. Then he finally let him out. Rav said, the person caused me this suffering, I curse that he should never have any children. Rav was so made a tzadik, and even though this referred to Shmuel, who was the chief rabbi of the Hadah, one of the greatest rabbis, or the greatest rabbi at that time outside of Rav, the curse had to come true. Later on, Rav found out that Shmuel did not do that in order to cause him suffering. As a doctor, he knew that to clear the stomach, the stomach pains, as you know previously, that he had to have a very powerful laxative, cleaning. And therefore he did this. His motive was pure, for the sake of helping him. And he could not undo the curse. Later on, Shmuel never had any children. Rav wanted to make up to him, to appease him. The Gemara says that one time they came to a feast, and they came to the door, and Rav said to Shmuel, in front of all these people, I will permit you to enter first. The law is that when they come to an entrance, the rabbi must go inside first. By right, Rav was considered the rabbi of Shmuel. He said, I will allow you to go inside first. I give you this tremendous kavod as appeasement to atone for having given you this curse of not having any children. Now, it sounds like a small atonement, but in those days, and even now, we consider the weight of it. That Rav should allow someone to go in before him, just let himself down to a point and elevated Shmuel so high that this was the greatest act he could do to make up for it. We see from here the danger, as it says in Pirkei Avot, to start with tzadikim. Never do anything to antagonize them, even if the motives are pure. Never allow the possible thought, the possibility of the mistake coming about, thinking that the intentions are to do harm, because starting with tzadikim, Pirkei Avot is like putting yourself into fire, a fire of intense heat where a person could be consumed. Whereas if a person shows a deep respect for tzadikim and a havah for them, then he has exactly the opposite. He has, instead of that fire, he has a tremendous light, brightness of Gen Eden. We should be zocher to this bright light by attaching ourselves with firm emunah and obedience to the tzadikim amitiyim, to the tzadik emet, nachal maleh v'kol chachma. Just to be zocher to call to the ruchni to the gashmiyut, amen v'amen.